Hi everyone, I am Whitroy. Welcome to this audiobook learning video.
Hi everyone, my name is John and I work alongside Whitroy as an electrical tutor.
In this video, we will introduce ASNZS 4836, which covers safe working on or near low voltage and extra low voltage electrical installations and equipment. Before we begin, I want to make something clear about this audiobook. This is not a word-for-word reading of ASNZS 4836-2023. The standard itself must always be read and followed exactly when you are doing electrical work or preparing for the EWRB exam. The official standard is the legal and technical reference. If there is any difference, missing detail, or possible mistake in this audiobook, you must follow the official document. What this audiobook does is take the key ideas from the standard and explain them in simple spoken language, the kind of language you can listen to while driving, working, or revising. It helps you understand what the clauses mean, why the rules exist, and how they apply in real electrical work. So please think of this audiobook as a learning companion, not a replacement for the actual standard. All right, let's get started.
Section 6. Working below ground on cables or services. Today we're moving into Section 6 of ASNZS 4836. This section is about working below ground on cables or services. The main idea is simple. Before anyone digs, excavates, penetrates the ground, exposes a cable, identifies a cable, or cuts a cable, the work must be carefully planned and controlled. Underground cables are not always visible. They may not be inside a protective enclosure. They may not have warning tape above them. They may not be shown correctly on drawings. So underground work must never be based on guessing. The safe approach is to assess the site, check records, locate services, expose cables carefully, identify the correct cable, prove it is de-energized, and control any remaining risks before work continues. Clause 6.1. General. Clause 6.1 explains the basic requirement for below-ground work. A safe system of work must be used when the work involves penetrating or excavating the ground at or below surface level. The purpose is to identify the location of underground cables and services before they are damaged or contacted. In simple terms, never assume the ground is clear. There may be electrical cables, data cables, gas pipes, water pipes, communication services, ducts, conduits, or other services below the surface. Even shallow digging can create serious risk if a cable or service is struck. So before the ground is opened, the work must be planned and the services must be identified as far as practicable. Clause 6.2. Site assessment. Clause 6.2 explains that a site assessment must be carried out before work begins. The site assessment checks whether the scope of work is affected by any underground services. This includes the type of work, the materials to be used, and the sequence of work. The site assessment must also decide what safety measures are needed to protect services, people, and property. A site assessment must include a complete and documented risk assessment. It must also include a visual inspection of the work area. This means looking for clues that services may be present. Examples include pits, cables, conduits, pipes entering the ground, signs, markers, covers, service entries, or disturbed ground. The assessment must also consider overhead hazards. This includes overhead poles and lines, and power lines that cross or run alongside the workplace or access routes. That is important because excavation work may involve machinery, trucks, cranes, elevated loads, or long materials that could come near overhead lines. Information, documents, plans, and drawings must be obtained as part of the job planning and kept readily available. This may include information from a service provider, agency, or authority, especially where excavation is in public areas or easements. It may also include cable location records for the property. Where practicable, services in the ground should be positively identified using methods such as non-destructive digging, or NDD, potholing, cable search instruments, cable locators, or commercial cable locating services. Locating devices may also be used to find and mark service locations. In simple terms, safe underground work starts before digging starts. Check the work area, check the records, check the drawings, look for surface clues, locate services, mark the services, keep the information available during the work. Clause 6.3. Excavation of and near to cables and services. Clause 6.3 explains how excavation near cables and services must be controlled. When excavating cables, or working in areas known to contain cables or other services, the cables must always be treated as energized until proven otherwise. This is a very important safety rule. A cable in the ground must not be treated as dead just because it looks old, unused, or damaged. It must be treated as energized until it is proven otherwise. Excavation must be carried out with extreme caution. Cables may not be protected by a wiring enclosure. Cables may not have warning tape above them, so the worker must not rely only on the hope that there will be a visible warning before the cable is reached. Before excavation starts, the site assessment must already have been completed. During excavation, a safety observer must be used where required. The safety observer has one main task. They must continually guide the excavator so it keeps clear of cables and does not contact or damage them. Jackhammers and crowbars must not be used to excavate cables because they can penetrate or damage the cable. Mechanical excavation must only use a toothless bucket and only down to the wiring enclosure or warning tape. The final stage of exposing a cable must be done using non-invasive methods. This means hand tools or hydro-vacuum excavation only. In practical terms, the closer you get to the cable, the more careful the excavation method must become. Heavy mechanical digging may be used only in the controlled early stage. The final exposure must be gentle and controlled. Clause 6.4. Identify the cable. Clause 6.4 explains that before work starts on a cable, the cable must be positively identified at the work site. The identification may use an electrical method or a non-electrical method, but the cable must be confirmed before work begins. No work must begin on a cable unless it is proven that the cable is de-energized. A cable may be proven de-energized when there is evidence of correct identification and evidence of isolation at the source. Both parts matter. You need to know it is the correct cable. You also need to know it has been isolated at the source. Finding a cable is not the same as identifying the correct cable, and identifying a cable is not the same as proving it is de-energized. If it cannot be proven that a cable is de-energized, controls must be in place to reduce the risk. In simple terms, do not work on a cable unless you know which cable it is and know that it has been made safe. Clause 6.5. Cable identification methods. Clause 6.5 explains cable identification methods. There are electrical methods and non-electrical methods. Electrical methods may include an audio frequency signal generator, current injection, pulse injection, interrupted earth methods, and fault location equipment. Non-electrical methods may include visual tracing from a proven isolation point, rodding of wiring enclosures, and cable plans. But a non-electrical method must not be used as the only means of identification. That is a very important point. Plans and drawings are useful, but they may be wrong, incomplete, out of date, or unclear. Visual tracing can help, but it may not always prove the cable identity on its own. In simple terms, use plans, records, and tracing as supporting information, but do not rely only on them where cable identity is safety critical. The identification method must be reliable enough for the risk. Clause 6.6. Other site risk factors when excavating underground. Clause 6.6 explains that underground excavation has other risks, not only electrical risks. These risks must be included in the site risk assessment. Excavation and pit hazards must be considered. This includes the depth of the excavation. If the excavation is deep, shoring may be required. Hollows, pits, and sumps must also be considered, because toxic fumes or gases may collect there. Air monitoring and confined space entry procedures may be needed. Traffic hazards must be considered. This includes vehicles, pedestrians, plant, and access routes near the excavation. Lack of ventilation must be considered. Elevated temperatures must be considered. Induced voltages and transferred earth potential must also be considered. In some situations, worksite equipotential bonding or complete insulation methods may be necessary. In simple terms, underground work can involve many hazards at the same time. A worker may face cable strike risk, ground collapse risk, traffic risk, fumes, poor air movement, heat, induced voltage, or dangerous voltage differences through the ground. So the excavation risk assessment must look at the whole site, not only the cable. Clause 6.7. Cutting underground cables and wiring enclosures. Clause 6.7 explains cutting underground cables and wiring enclosures. Cables and wiring enclosures must be positively identified before cutting begins. This is a critical step. A cable must not be cut because someone thinks it is probably the correct cable. A cable must not be cut because it appears old. A cable must not be cut because the drawing suggests it should be safe. Before cutting, the cable or wiring enclosure must be positively identified. The relevant authority may also have additional requirements for working below ground on cables and services, including no-go zone requirements. So site rules, network owner requirements, and authority requirements must also be followed. In simple terms, before cutting, stop and confirm. Confirm the cable identity. Confirm the isolation. Confirm the controls. Confirm the site requirements. Then continue only when the work can be done safely. That brings us to the end of Section 6 of ASNZS 4836. This section reminds us that underground work must never be based on guessing. Before digging or cutting, assess the site, check plans and records, locate services, expose cables carefully, identify the correct cable, prove it is de-energized, and control any remaining risks. Treat underground cables as energized until proven otherwise. Use careful excavation methods. Do not rely only on drawings. Do not cut until the cable has been positively identified. And do not continue if the underground risk cannot be properly controlled.